Welcome to Prime Life. We call it Retirement 2.0. Leave each episode with tips and new ideas to help you navigate retirement in our new age. It's your time. Make it count.
This podcast is for educational purposes only. It is not intended as medical, investment, or financial advice. We do not sponsor or endorse any of the individuals, companies, products, or services featured on this podcast. Any statements or opinions expressed are of the individual who makes them. We hope you enjoy the episode.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Prime Life podcast. This is Laura Dynan-Haber, kicking it off with co-host Mary. Mary, how are you doing today?
Great, Laura. It's great to see you back on Prime Life.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been a busy time for so many people, myself as well. So I'm excited to be here today. Thankful for the opportunity. And I think today's conversation is really going to be music to everyone's ears. So with that, Mary, if you could kindly do the introduction.
I absolutely will. I'm very excited to introduce our guest on Prime Life podcast, Alexis Baker. She's a board-certified music therapist for about 10 years, and she's the owner of Bridgetown Music Therapy. She's passionate about using music to make a positive difference in people's lives. Alexis, welcome to the Prime Life podcast. We'd love to hear a little bit about you and why you do what you do. Hear your story.
Well, thank you so much for having me on the show today. So good to be with both of you.
So, Alexis, please tell us a little bit about yourself and a little bit about how you use music to make people's lives better.
Sure. So going back to my childhood just a little bit, I grew up in a quote, unquote, musical family where learning to play an instrument was very encouraged and supported. I started piano lessons when I was 8. I began playing guitar when I was 10 and have been playing ever since. And then in high school, I discovered the path of music therapy, which a lot of people don't realize is an organized profession and career. And there's a whole process to becoming board certified as a music therapist. I searched the list of accredited programs in the US for music therapy and pursued that path. And then I completed there's 1,200 clinical hours required to become certified, and completed all the coursework and training, and then took the board certification exam. And I've been certified for 10 years now. And then I began Bridgetown Music Therapy in 2016 at the end of the year. And then really at that point decided to specialize in serving the older adult population. And that's what I've been doing ever since. I have a special focus on serving individuals living with dementia through music therapy, music-based engagement activities.
You know, it's so interesting. I grew up in a musically focused family as well. And, you know, my father plays the guitar, he plays the piano, he's learned to play by ear. He can't read the sheet music, but he just hears it and he's able to play. I have a twin sister, she plays 9 instruments. My brother, he went to a music conservatory. So there's so much music in my family, and I got about 0% of it. I say that my sister took it from me at birth, being a twin, but I've always loved music, and I love the way that music has an impact, right? So if we hear a song, we can be transported to a location or a place in time. If we sing a song, I find that it helps me to remember things, right? So I have 2 young children, and a lot of the learning that they're doing right now is through song. And with these songs, they're able to kind of go through a process that otherwise may be tedious, but is actually a lot more fun for them. And, you know, I find myself singing it for better or worse throughout my workday. But all that to be said, talk to us a bit about the power of music and what you've seen, and then what your studies have taught you about how really the power of transformation within it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's been a lot of scientific research and studies done on music. More recently, it's becoming more widely recognized, and people are becoming more aware about the benefits of music. And this research has revealed that music can affect every area of the brain. So it's very cognitive focused activity, but it also affects the body, the emotions, social connection and interaction. So all it affects all these different areas of functioning. We call those domains: the physical, mental, social, emotional. That's kind of how we talk about the benefits of music. And there's a lot of studies about um, music affecting the brain at a physiological level, with even helping create new neural pathways and really activating the feel good centers of the brain. So that's kind of the sciencey way to talk about it. But most people know, like, they have their music they love, and um, they know it makes them feel good. So we can talk about it that way too, where it's, there's just so many different ways music can positively affect us.
So, Alexis and I were talking before we started recording. I was sharing a story about my parents and how we used music. It was my husband's idea, give them total credit. They were being a little cranky pantsy, and we were trying to get them not, disengaged from watching news and all that kind of stuff. And so we took out the Bose, and, I hooked it up to my, favorite, music membership that I have. And it was like instantaneous. It was instantaneous. They stopped arguing, which was a good thing. They wanted to listen. My dad's, loves different types of music, wide variety. My mom's a little bit more, during her time in the 50s. And it was just like, as you said, it just, or like even Laura said as well, it's just like transformed them in time. And it just completely changed the mood. And I was so amazed by that. And I thought, we should incorporate that. And I've encouraged them to listen to music more, because I do think that it helps calm. It helps, like, again, brings you back to memories you've had as a child, or, maybe, I don't know, a teenager or even a young adult. I'm not, wherever it takes you back, that you can feel a sense of, um, I think satisfaction or just contentment. But I really love, on your website, you point out that music is one of the very first things we respond to at the beginning of life, and one of the very last things we respond to at the end of life. Like, when I read that, I got goosebumps. And so,
Hmm.
Alexis, I would love for you to talk about, if you could tell our audience a couple of stories about individuals that you've worked with where you've seen some impact and transformation. We would love to hear that.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that story about your parents recently with the power of music. And sometimes music can be an instant switch, an instant change in mood, or affect, or even just physical movement in the body. Or it can be a gradual thing. There's residual effects of music. One of my favorite experiences as a music therapist is helping people find their voice again. And that can be the physical mechanism, um, but also like the emotional expression. So there was a woman who had recently suffered a stroke, and I actually didn't know this, but I was working with a group, and she was one of the individuals in the group. And she had pretty much lost the ability to speak, but I was making my way around the circle and just kind of interacting with each person. And I knelt down um, to her eye level and made contact with her and just started singing the song "You Are My Sunshine." It's a very well-known, familiar song to a lot of people. And to the amazement of the nurses and care staff, myself, because I wasn't told ahead of time that she had suffered a stroke, she began audibly singing with me, not just mouthing the words, but I could hear her voice. And I remember a nurse or caregiver behind her, her mouth just dropped open and she couldn't believe it. And so I kept singing, and it just gave this woman a chance to express herself, but also an opportunity to practice speaking through singing again. And I didn't see her after that again. It was just a one-time interaction with her, but hopefully it led to some recovery of her speech. And just one more story about a gentleman with very advanced Alzheimer's who had lost his ability to speak for the most part, and he really loved Christmas songs. And I had my guitar and was singing, and he just began belting out this song. I forget what song it was, but something switched and it just opened him up, and he was able to just really express himself through song. And that was just such a beautiful moment.
I love that. We we share a lot of stories on this show. So for those who have been listeners, A, thank you. And B, you may have heard it before, but my paternal grandmother was in a facility, dementia. She was towards the end of her journey. And my brother went in to visit one day, and he brought me his phone with him. And he had asked my dad before he went over, and he said, what are some of Nana's favorite songs? Because my grandmother was a pianist. She played organ in the church. Like, music was part of her life through and through. So my brother grabbed a few of those songs, pulled them up on Spotify, and just started to play. And then, Nana was responsive and she was engaging. And where the conversations weren't what they used to be, or, the audible components, she was there. She was present. So even having seen it firsthand, the power, it's unbelievable. It's absolutely unbelievable. So to that end, talk to us more about the work that you do, right? You work with patients, as you mentioned, but what are some other groups of individuals who you've seen music really impact, music therapy? Like, where have you made impacts? Where has this science made impacts in other people's lives?
And we'll get that answer after a brief word from our commercial sponsors.
Nassau is always working harder to be your carrier of choice. We offer insurance products that can help you meet your retirement goals, such as protecting your savings, securing lifetime income, or paying for healthcare costs. We're dedicated to providing best-in-class service and are keeping things simple, and we'll have your back. We have around 400,000 policyholders and contract holders and have been doing this for a long time, 170 years. But we remain humble enough to always try to improve. For more information, visit nfg.com. Nassau insurance products are issued by Nassau Life and Annuity Company of Hartford, Connecticut, Nassau Life Insurance Company, East Greenbush, New York, or Nassau Life Insurance Company of Kansas, Overland Park, Kansas. Subsidiaries of Nassau Financial Group. Products are not available in all areas. Policyholder counts are for all Nassau companies as of September 30th, 2022, and are subject to change.
Coverite is the first digital concierge health insurance platform focused on Medicare. Their mission is to make Medicare more transparent and accessible for America's 60 million Medicare beneficiaries. By simplifying a traditionally confusing and complex decision, Coverite delivers a simple, seamless, and hassle-free plan selection and enrollment experience. Try the Coverite platform and see for yourself why they've been referred to as the TurboTax for Medicare. Visit coverite.com/podcast to learn more.
Well, we talked about music impacting human beings from pre-birth, even like in the womb. Babies respond to rhythm and melodies, and then through end of life. So music therapy can be used with any age, any population. I've worked with kids where it's more like developmental focused, helping them develop their language skills and learn certain things, how to appropriately social interact with people, how to gain better control of their body, so physical movement, eye-hand coordination, things like that, using rhythm to really instill those things in them. I've worked with adults with developmental disabilities. I've worked in the mental health setting, and then older adults. And music therapy is used in the neonatal intensive care unit with premature babies, all the way through end of life in hospice and palliative care. So it really is versatile. It looks different in each of those settings. And I decided to focus on the older adult population because I was working with all these different ages and groups of people. And musically, it was such a wide variety, and I was having a hard time grasping all of the different types of music I was using. And I wanted to really focus in on the music that speaks to, resonates with the older populations. And kind of a general rule of thumb in music therapy is the music that resonates most with people is that from their childhood, teens, and early adulthood years, like their 20s and sometimes into their 30s. So if you have an 80-year-old, you can kind of calculate the decades of music. But then even with that, you want to find out what their specific musical preferences are. So specific singers, bands, style of music, genre, all kinds of things. So the world of music is very vast, and there's so much you can do within it. And then there's listening to music, singing, movement to music, songwriting. There's all kinds of different activities that we use to engage people in music-based activities. There's playing instruments and song lyric, we call it song lyric analysis, but it's just like discussions about song lyrics. So it's more of an engaged listening activity. So yeah, there's really all kinds of ways music can be used.
So I want to jump on something real quick, only because it came up in my feed earlier, and it's part of my favorite time of the year in a music lens, and that's your Spotify list, right? So for me, I'm a Spotify listener. I know there's a lot out there, but they put in your year in Wrapped, which I think is a beautiful thing. So it tells you essentially what artists did you listen to the most? What songs did you listen? How many minutes did you listen? What was your preferred genre of music? And it kind of lays out your entire listening journey for that year. There were some surprises in mine. My sister sent me hers. As I mentioned, we're twins. Our top two matched. We don't share playlists, but I feel like if we did, it would, it'd be pretty good. So question to you would be, have you seen trends? I know you mentioned that it's music from early childhood, right? And that could align with, one could say, if my Nana was in her 80s, if it's early childhood, as you mentioned, you go back in time and you see who was popular at that point. The style of music is very different from back then, 60, 70 years ago than it is today. And you also mentioned what was interesting is, the neonatal, when the child is in the womb still growing within the mother, they're reactive to the melodies and to the rhythm. I happen to be listening to a lot of Lizzo when my daughter was, and I find that she has got the best rhythm I've seen for a small person of the age of 2. So my question to you would be, have you seen, and this doesn't have to be scientific, but through your experience, have you seen any correlation to the type of music someone prefers and any kind of traits or any kind of really anything? I would just be curious if, is there a correlation between like those classic music versus maybe someone who is more of like a country genre versus a hip hop genre versus other genres?
Yeah, I think that's a great observation. And yes, I would say that's true for the most part. And I've seen that in how it could be a personality thing. It could be the way they respond to the music. physically. So, for example, the way they shuffle their feet or kind of bob to the music, it could match that style or the type of dance or movement that typically goes along with that style of music, genre, rhythm. So yes, I've definitely seen that, and it's a very interesting thing to observe.
So, first, I have a comment. My husband's a seventh grade science teacher, and he actually plays cool jazz music in his room. And he shared that when he had parents teacher conferences, and the parents really loved it. And it keeps them kind of calm. So, he uses that at a very low level, kind of a background, and that's what works. So, again, seventh graders, interesting. But I'm going to change subjects right now just a little bit. I know you were a part of an article that was well publicized, and it was really around, why someone should choose to pick up an instrument in their later years, and what are the benefits, and also what instruments perhaps that you would recommend. Can you speak a little bit about that?
Absolutely. I think there's so much we can do for our bodies and minds as we age to take care of ourselves. And one of those things is being a lifelong learner. I really like to encourage people to continue learning into their later years because there are so many benefits to it. And learning to play an instrument, for example, can be one of those things. It doesn't necessarily fall under the music therapy category, although there can be some overlap with learning to play an instrument within a music therapy setting. But again, scientific research on learning to play an instrument and engaging in music-based activities, scientists and researchers have found that it can affect nearly every part of the brain. So it almost becomes a brain workout, and it's really great for boosting brain health. It can really relieve stress and anxiety. It can give you that sense of accomplishment. Can really help just sharpen the mind. And it's also a creative outlet for self-expression. So yeah, I'm all for it.
Well, what tips would you have for someone who's looking to pick up an instrument? So I've picked up a few instruments. I haven't yet successfully learned any of them, although ukulele is on my short list. So I feel like if I'm going to tackle one, that's a good place to start. So what tips do you have for people looking to dabble in that?
Now an ad from one of our sponsors. Remember when you could trust the news? Well, then check out Walter. Walter is the free, no-nonsense newsletter for grown-ups that comes to your inbox 3 times a week. From current trends, aging in place, travel, retirement, and everything in between, including a dash of pop culture trivia and throwbacks, Walter is a great way to start your mornings and to stay informed. Oh, and did we mention that it's free? Check us out at thisiswalter.com. Get smart. Get Walter.
Well, I will say ukulele is a great one to start with. I would say be open to a period of just trying. You can always go to a music store and pick up several different instruments. Just see how they feel, see how they sound to you. If you don't like the sound, then that's probably not a good one to pursue. But yeah, just a trial and error period of being open to trying and maybe not feeling comfortable with it initially, but knowing that you're focusing on finding an instrument to focus on learning.
I always said I wanted to play the piano when I was a kid. I didn't have formal lessons, but any chance I got when I was over my cousin's house, they had a piano. There I was. I'm sure it didn't sound very great, but I loved it, so I could see myself that would be. And I was sharing earlier that my daughter Alexandra, we still have her clarinet. She played the clarinet through high school, and she enjoyed that part of her past. And I don't know, maybe she'll pick the clarinet up again. Who knows, right? So, Alexis, as we kind of get closer to the end before Laura likes to ask her final question, if an individual, whether it's an individual or their family, because you talked about Alzheimer's and caregivers and whatnot, what's a couple of, quick tips that someone should maybe try so with music that's like an easy first step? If they're thinking, wow, they're hearing this podcast and like, that's a great idea. Where should I start incorporating music so that my loved one, enjoys the later years of their life and something that's not too complicated? What would you say to that?
That's a really great question. And another thing I really encourage caregivers to do, I wrote an article a couple years back about 7 ways to incorporate music into the day-to-day of caregiving, and just listed out some different things. But I think to start, you really want to be a detective and do some digging. Just ask your loved one a lot of questions and try to find out what they might enjoy musically. And then with those 7 tips, there's music listening, there's dance and movement to music, playing an instrument, recording music. So it's so easy to grab our phones now and pull up either the video camera or the recording app and capture those moments of interacting with your loved one through music. Songwriting, you can take any song and write a parody to it. So keep the musical structure, the melody and chords, but change the lyrics to your own. You can just get really creative with music, and I always say nothing's off the table. Just be open to trying, because you never know what you'll discover.
Yeah, that's great. That's fun. It's almost like we should have just ended this with many musical instruments. I used to work with a group of friends. They were absolutely fantastic. And when we'd have really stressful days, we'd pull out what we call the baby instruments, similar to what Jimmy Fallon and his group does. And we'd all just take them out of the filing cabinet. We'd sit in our, what we called the core 4, was a group of 4 of us, and we would just play a song. And it would be terrible, but we would have so much fun. So I think bonding is another important piece of music, going to concerts with friends, because we can do that again, and it's a beautiful, wonderful thing. So, all of this to say, thank you for taking us through this journey today, helping us understand a bit about the work that you do and the impact that music has not only in the immediate, but through the entire life cycle, and even creating memories too, right? As we remember loved ones, if they are not with us anymore, we hear a song and sometimes we can think of them or things of that nature. So I appreciate this. You've helped me remember a lot of things, which is fun for me. But the question I have for you is, you've had a very interesting background. You do great work every day. You get up and do this, but what is your why? Why have you selected this, and what's going to bring you forward with it?
I found something that I could be passionate about, and my passion has kept me going through all of the years. It's not the easiest field to be in, because we're not always appreciated and people don't always understand what exactly we do. But I discovered the power of music. Music has helped me personally in so many ways. Just as an example, I was a super shy kid. I didn't always like talking to people, but in high school, I began singing, and I really gained a lot of confidence through that. And um, that's just one example of how music has helped me. Music has helped me through breakups and um, just difficult times in my life, all kinds of things. And I've also seen so many, I've had so many experiences of music impacting other people that I want to do more of that. I'm a helper at heart. So my why is helping people through music, which is essentially what music therapy is, at its most basic level, is using music to help people. And I have a desire to make a difference in the world. And this is one way I can do that, through using music.
Well, that's wonderful. And, and keep playing, right? Keep playing, keep sharing, and sharing your notes, sharing your story with the world. We appreciate it. We're happy that we can help amplify, pun intended, your message here through this podcast. But we appreciate you and the work that you do. And, we will put links to your website, to your business, in the show notes. But for anyone who wants to contact you and learn more about what you do and potentially engage your services, what is the best way for them to do that?
I would say the best way is to visit our website, bridgetownmt.com. That's Bridgetown Music Therapy. And we just have a contact us button at the top that makes it super easy. And you can send an email there, or give us a phone call, or reach out on social media.
Wonderful. Wonderful. As I mentioned, we'll put all that in the show notes, but we thank you so much, Alexis, for joining us today, sharing your story, helping us, look back in time and potentially look ahead. So we'll be putting on some music this afternoon, editing this out, and we can't wait to share it with everyone. So to our listeners, thank you again for tuning into the Prime Life podcast, and we look forward to next week's episode. Thanks so much, and we'll talk to everyone soon.
Remember to subscribe to the Prime Life podcast anywhere you find podcasts. You can find all of our episodes, contact information, and more on our website, primelifepodcast.com. Stay connected with us. Follow us on LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok.